Hi, welcome back to the video on programming Windows 8 apps. In this video, we will create a slightly more comprehensive app. Okay, so what we'll do again is go to File, click on New Project, create a blank app first, and we'll create, we call it a simple alert app. Okay, click OK. Alright, generate the files needed. And now we're going to explain something more in depth about about our project files. Okay, over here we have a main page.xaml. Okay, what exactly is a main page.xaml? Okay, if you have used Windows 8 apps and you see each screen, now each screen is actually represented by a .xaml file. Okay, if you double click on it, okay, what we have is you can see a .xaml file. Is the code behind it is these lines. Pretty much it looks like an XML file, okay, with tags, or it looks like a HTML file. Okay, what we have at the upper element is a page tag, page element, and in the page element we have a grid. Alright, and all this describe how the user interface will look like. Now, this being a blank page, it has nothing. So what we have done previously and we could do now is we are going to delete it, okay, and we're going to replace it, okay, by clicking on a project and right clicking and adding. We're going to replace it by adding a basic page which has at least a middle page with layout awareness, title, and a back button control. You can explore adding other pages like a split page, which has an items page, which are more comprehensive. And in the next videos, we will show some examples. But now, stick with basic page, and remember that we have to rename it as main page, because a couple of elements, okay, add the missing files automatically. A couple of elements have already been added previously to the main page.xaml. So now let's wait for it to load. Okay, it has loaded, and as you see again, the design view is not populated yet because we have yet to build the project. Okay, to do that, we can build it first. So as to give an assurance that we already have a working user interface. Okay, minimize and minimize. Okay, and we can scroll and see our application as how the shows on a real Windows 8 device. Okay, as always, we'll change the header here. Okay, and by clicking and go to properties pane and editing the name to, let's say, simple alert app. Okay, and we change. Now the next thing is, you notice that our user interface is completely blank. So what we'll start to do is we'll start to populate it with UI controls, as what we have seen in normal Windows 8 app that you use. Things like buttons, text boxes, and so on. To do that, click on Toolbox. Okay, so Toolbox will contain all the UI controls that we need. And you see a couple of common UI controls. Here we call it common XAML controls. Okay, we will be adding a text block. Okay, a text block is some similar to this thing here. Okay, so we've added this text block, and note that you can drag it around. I'll just put it here, and I'll change the name to, if you click on it and under the properties pane, okay, you see a text. You can change this to enter name with a colon. Okay, okay, notice that it's a bit small, right? So we're going to make it bigger. Okay, to do that, you can actually just browse through the properties pane, and under text properties, okay, just change the font to whatever font size you want. I'll change it to 24, and immediately becomes bigger. Alright, just drag it more to the left. Now next, we will drag a text box into it. Okay, just click and drag it to the design pane, and what we have is over here. Yep, we can actually extend this, and now we have text box. Okay, next we will drag a button so as we can click it. Okay, the button arrives, and we want to change the text in the button. So again, we click on it, go to properties pane, under the comment, under content, change it to, let's say, click me. Okay, click me. Okay, and you can try running your project. Okay, so yeah, looks quite cool, right? But now, if you notice that if you click on click me, nothing much happens, and this is pretty much what we expect because we have not done any code. Okay, what we do is we will let when we enter, let's say, a name over here, enter a name, and we click on this, we will say a hello message to Jeremy, for example. Okay, or to whoever name which we enter here. So to do that, okay, just go back to the Visual Studio, click on the stop button. Okay, and we will, what we drag is, now we will drag another text block, into it. Okay, and we'll leave it here, and you just extend it. So essentially, this text block will just contain our alert message. Alright, contain alert message. Now it's important over here that now we have to assign a name to this text block, so that later in our code we can actually reference to this text block. To assign a name, what we do is click on under the properties pane. Under the name, you give it a name. Okay, so I call it text block. Alright, or text block tbk, or I just call it message block. Alright, message block. Okay, so now I know that whenever I mention the name message block, it's referring to this text block. Okay, and because okay, if you run it for now, okay, what we see is there's the content text block over here. We're going to get rid of this, as well as over here, so that immediately we can enter the name. Alright, so what we do is we stop it. Okay, and then we get the delete away the content, and similarly we delete away the content. Okay, so that's gone, but it's still there, it just doesn't display a word. Now what we do now is very important. Click on the button. Okay, and in the properties pane, notice that now we are in the spanner. The spanner is highlighted. Next to the spanner is a thunderbolt. Click on the thunderbolt, and what we have is, you see a list of event handlers. Now what's an event handler? An event handler is simply a portion of code that handles an event. What I mean is, for example, we have a click over here. Wherever someone clicks on the button, this portion of code will handle this click event. For example, double tap. When someone double taps on this button, okay, this portion of code will handle the double tap button. I know it might seem complicated, but with an example it might be more obvious. Okay, I'll just assign a name for this click event handler first. For example, I call it click me, okay, underscore click event. Okay, click and then enter. So what we have is we are brought to the code page, and we have a portion of code here which is generated for us. It's called, look at the name, it's called click me underscore click, the name which we have previously entered in. Okay, it's the exact same name. Okay, and where is this code? Notice that the code is actually located in this file called mainpage.xaml.cs. Remember previously that we have shown you that mainpage.xaml, if you click it, it shows you this user interface. But behind every user interface, there is a code file for it, and the code file is just it simply has an extension to it, a .cs to the end of the file name. .cs means in C#. Okay, you can notice this in our Solution Explorer as well. Okay, if you expand the arrow of mainpage.xaml, you see a mainpage.xaml.cs. This is the code file behind the user interface file. Alright, so this is the portion of code, okay, which we call the method, okay, which will be called when we click on the button. Don't worry about many of these concepts. I will repeat as we go along. Okay, so what we do first is we want to populate remember the text block which we have called, and we have called it message, right? Message block. Okay, message block, and we're going to assign to it some content. Okay, we do this by calling the property .text, okay, and assigning it say we'll assign it, we'll say you have clicked the button. Okay, now what we have said is whenever someone clicks on this click me method or event handler, the message block .text message block, the text property of message block, we have a value you have clicked the button. Okay, now what this means is if we run the code, okay, and you click on click me, oh, you have clicked the button, it appears. That means whenever we click on this button, okay, we come to this portion of code, and this value gets assigned to this variable here. Okay, don't be too worried about all these things now. As we go along the videos, I'll show you. Okay, I think we'll stop here for now.